Radio in motion program loading in 3, 2, 1. Program activated.
Attention everyone, the unpleasant noise you are about to hear coming from your radio is not a mistake.
Okay, first things first, what is your name?
This is Big Sonny playing the best of the 90s and beyond.
Are you ready for this?
Yeah. Radio in motion.
Please do not turn off your radio, but turn up the volume on your receiver as high as it can go.
All right, ready, here we go.
Radio in motion.
All right, thanks for joining me tonight on Radio Motion. We're doing Landman live tonight. All that gritty country and roughneck sort of music that sort of depicts the landman, which is sort of a euphemism for the men and women who are behind allocating and getting the land and land rights for oil, Texas and oil. I think that's pretty synonymous and something that people associate with Texas, and they're not wrong. And there's a great show out now that I was going to have a bit of a chat about because I think it's fantastic, and I mean it has the kind of dramatic scenes that you'd wish you'd see in movies lately, and I just think movies have been letting us down. So it's the show's called Landman, and it's by Taylor Sheridan, and he is a prolific writer. He is fantastic, the man behind Yellowstone and Tulsa King, and a lot of the shows that I think are just showing us true drama. And I know that's nothing completely new as far as shows like The Sopranos a while back, obviously a fantastic show, HBO show, and on TV. But I don't know, I feel like then there was a bit of a lull and everyone was trying to get in on the game, and again, so the ugly truth is people still expected to go to the movies and get that high quality storytelling. And based on a lot of the movie reviews I've done as of late, I feel like Hollywood just doesn't get it. They think they have to keep delivering us the big Marvel movie spectacular. And I think those kind of movies have run their course and people want something different. And sure, hey, I love those. I love the good 10-year run, the Marvel movies and the DC movies and the action heroes and the comic book world come to life. But there's more to movies than just comic book heroes. And then I'll be honest, when they did try to do something dramatic or something a bit different, they just end up rebooting everything from the 80s and 90s, folks. I tell you, like I said, I feel like they've run out of ideas. There's Aliens and Predator and Terminator, and if there's really more to the story, cool. If there's some sort of prequel or something that could enhance the originals, great. But it's just a giant money grab because they have run out of ideas. So this is why I wanted to talk about Landman, and I think, again, Taylor Sheridan, he's really got the pulse of what the people want. And look, I will be honest, if you're a fan of Yellowstone, I think it did start off well, and then maybe it fizzled out towards the end. I do think he was juggling a bit too much with Landman and the other shows. And it has been said that he had a bit of a clash with Kevin Costner, and I'm not saying either is at fault, but Kevin Costner also had a big dream project, an epic that he wanted to bring to the screen, and he was also working on that movie while doing Yellowstone. Anyway, look, with two people like that who do have a track record of succeeding and really bringing it, as in, you expect great things, and both of them have delivered. Obviously, Kevin Costner over the years, again, whether you think, he's had hit and miss, the man is a busy man, busier than me. He works hard, and again, maybe they just clashed a bit. Anyway, Yellowstone fizzled out a bit, but I tell you, Landman has started strong. They're into season 2, and I just wanted to talk about, there may be mild spoilers, and there's a pivotal scene that I am going to talk about that just aired called Sins of the Father. And there is one scene that I'll talk about, and it's a bit of a spoiler in that I'm going to describe how I think the scene just depicts so many things that's lacking in modern movies and just storytelling in general. And if you don't want to hear that, block your ears for a minute. But I'll try to keep it very generic. And if you haven't tuned into the show, definitely tune in. It's fantastic. Again, wherever you are, in America, Australia. Obviously check out where it's streaming, because it's different everywhere you go. But essentially, Landman, the premise is about the whole big oil industry, multi-billion-dollar corporations, just like anything, any sort of energy. And when everyone thinks, there's a lot of gritty reality in the show, which I like, as in, there tends to be, again, the cancel culture just shuts people down, thinking that, oil is the devil and solar is the best. That whole industry of energy in general is just a giant intertwined, corrupted thing, because whenever money's involved, anything that's altruistic goes out the window. And there's some great scenes from season 1. And so this is starring Billy Bob Thornton, and he is fantastic in it. And he plays Bill Harris in the show. And essentially, there's some scenes where he's even told someone who says, but look at all these wind farms. They're the future. And, Australia and America are certainly into, the whole net zero and everything is about environment. And I'm not knocking that. I love technology. I want us to go forward. I want us to think about the next best thing. But sometimes I think they push something and they don't tell you the whole truth. Those giant wind turbines, how do you think that works? Just the metal and the gears and the components that work that, and there's still oil and grease in the thing, and someone has to maintain it. And not to be mean, the wind ain't always blowing. The point is there's a scene where he explains how each one, just the resources that went into it, none of those turbines are net zero, as in they didn't affect the environment just by building them. And the other thing is do you think that giant oil companies don't also invest in that? Because they don't care. Whatever, solar, sure. They've got their hands in everything. So it's not like some big battle between the evil oil and the good, solar and wind turbine companies. It's all the same people. And Landman sort of, is a peek behind that. And before anyone goes, God, that sounds boring. Well, you know what? That subject alone probably could be. Who wants to just see that? Someone procuring land. Well, again, Taylor Sheridan has a great knack to show you the sort of delivering gritty, grounded, and emotionally precise human drama that goes in anything. I don't care what job there is on earth, whether you work in medical or you're working up on a power line, or you're down digging in a sewer, or every job in between, everything you can imagine. Of course, there's more to the story. There's a human story behind it, and the show's subject matter, again, you could easily say, it's just, it would be too heavy and technical and also overly masculine, which God knows that's evil these days. And just a legacy of rough jobs and roughnecks. But it's not. Instead, it sort of shapes it into a universally appealing character study. Okay? There are men and women on the show. And yes, surprise, of course women are involved. And the thing is, and I'll talk about this, I always talk about this, the women aren't placed there just as a symbol for you to say, do you get the message? Women are tough and awesome and can do everything. I never said they couldn't. But especially in so many Hollywood movies these days, they don't write it well. And it comes across forced. And it would be the same if it were a man. It has nothing to do with gender. A badly written character is a badly written character. And these women, the female parts, are written well. As in, I don't care who you are, you have to earn your place. You can't just show up on the scene and go, I'm a boss bitch and I'm taking over. It's the same as if a man did that. It's ridiculous. You have to earn it. And everyone on the show earns it. And it's awesome. So yeah, the main characters, just a quick synopsis. Billy Bob Thornton, the main character, he's sort of the seasoned oil man, and he's got, decades of scars just working in that business and an emotional past and yeah, sure. He is sort of the typical stoic, sharp-witted, carrying again a lifetime of regret, a legacy of how his father treated him. And again, I think when you hear that, you go, oh yeah, that's the same sort of tropes. No, when it's explored well and done well, then it is something that you can immerse yourself in. And yeah, I think, he brings a realism that really anchors the series. So yeah, I won't lie, it really does revolve around him, and he is fantastic. And Demi Moore is in it. She's taken over the company for her husband. Again, mild spoiler, he's gone. I'll let you figure out how. But I think it's fantastic again because they've written great scenes for her to show that she's not just an oil man's wife who was just sitting around at the pool. And even if she wasn't necessarily involved directly, and again, it could have gone either way. Maybe there's a man married to a woman and the woman has built the empire. Of course, that can happen too. But in this case, it just happened to be that, her husband was in it, but it shows her as smart, strategic, and deeply layered. And again, represents a woman navigating what would historically be a male-oriented business, but without diminishing the men around her. Oh my God, isn't that amazing? It can be done like in real life. If we all work with men and women in the modern age, and I don't think anyone has worked with someone that they've seen depicted in a movie because it's just so bizarre. In real life, this is how it works. You can excel and be great and not have to diminish those around you, and especially men. And I'm sorry, that is depicted in movies these days. The women who are the strong women, they have to make sure they knock down the men around them and point out their toxic masculinity. That only goes so far before that gets real old. So Demi Moore, great part. His son, Cooper, I think it's Jacob Laughlin, if I got that right. Again, a great father and son story that is starting to unfold. And again, showing the sort of the generational impact of the industry. And again, you could say this about a lot of industries, but this one definitely would take a heavy toll with someone who might say, oh, someone who's married to their job. I think in this industry, like it shows, I don't know how else it could be. I think if someone gets into that industry, they should probably remain single, but that doesn't always happen. So this definitely shows the balance between, an admiration for the legacy, but also the frustration of the personal cost. And again, you're saying, oh, I've heard these phrases before. It's the legacy of a rough business, and then the family gets set aside. Yeah, but I don't know. I think Taylor Sheridan really writes it well, that it unfolds slowly, and you really get involved. You get involved with the characters. There's a great character. There's a female lawyer, Rebecca. And again, at first, yeah, they probably dismissed her a bit. And I'm sure that does happen. Of course, that happens these days. But she showed, again, that she actually has a powerful representation of, again, a woman operating in a traditionally male-dominated areas. In law and land rights, oil companies, contracts, negotiation. I'm just saying, this is how you do it right. And she is sharp and pragmatic and fearless, and she knows the rules of the game probably better than some of the men in the room. And just like any well-written female character, guess what? Everyone shows up to watch, the men and the women. Also, a quick tidbit on the side. Everyone thinks that if it's a female-driven movie, and it's all about just focusing on gender or race, which normal people don't do that. Every human is a unique thing, and it is just the sum of their parts. We are all those parts of us are religion and race and gender, and it's not who we are. It's everything that we are. And I think it's weird that movies will focus on that. But, it makes no sense that they just can't write a well-written, well-rounded part like that. So yeah, each character brings really something special. There's grit and humor, intelligence, moral conflict, but there's still emotional tenderness. like I say, I already was sucked into the show in the first season, but now the second one is already showing me the kind of things I'm like, this is Oscar worthy stuff, but on TV. And the women, they aren't sidelined. They have their own stories, their own pressures, their own internal conflicts, and the men also, they aren't softened or mocked to elevate the women. Newsflash, folks, men and women are different, and those differences is the amazing thing that I think makes men and women actually work well together, as long as there's no assumptions that one has to act one way or one has to act another way. And again, I've always talked about sort of the balance between masculinity and femininity. Got that word out. I think there's always a phrase that really shits me lately, and it's toxic masculinity. You know what? After watching all the shows that my partner watches, all the housewife shows, I don't care if it's Housewives of OC, Housewives of New York, Housewives of Sydney. I don't care what city they picked. And yeah, okay, it's reality TV, and the reality part of TV, you put a big cross through that because nothing's real. But I'm going to be honest, there are elements where they put these groups together, and the formula is always the same. They start off friends. Someone does a text, and they put something on social media. One gets pissed. They go to a party. Someone gets drunk. There's a drink thrown in their face. The point is that is the new thing. There's feminine, toxic femininity. It's real. So again, being toxic or disrespectful or rude or outwardly horrible to another human, surprise, guess what, folks? Women do it to women. Men do it to men. I don't think it's reserved for toxic males. So yeah, that gets old. But yeah, so while the oil industry might be historically a man's world, I think Landman shows women entering it without needing to undercut the men, and that's nice to see. The portrayal is balanced. Women have power without posturing, and men have vulnerability, but without losing dignity. And there is a difference. I'm sorry. There's this whole thing again, the stoic male. That's another way that's microaggression. I'm sorry, folks. It's interesting that people do recognize that men and women are different, but then there's others that are they're just interchangeable, emotionally or physically. And I'm sorry, but there is a difference, and it's a wonderful balance. And this show, yeah, it creates a shared playing field, and it's still gritty and tough, where again, both genders bring something vital and unique. And again, it always annoys me that I even have to say that, but I feel like I have to get through that so that everyone knows how it can work and how it can be written well. And so yeah, that's the show in general. Fantastic. Again, it gets stuck into some of the harsh realities of big oil, which is again big business, and it's not just about all the technical, but there is some cool stuff in there. I wouldn't call it action, but I would call it some scenes where you're like, damn, that looks harsh. And, the men and women, I'm not going to lie, I won't get into this here. It is still mostly men. Again, this could be debated, especially when it does come to something so physically demanding that surprise, robots haven't taken over yet. And I'm sorry, some of the hardest physical, grittiest jobs, men still do, as much as people would hate that. Men and women, of course, if it were just our brains, obviously we bring our uniqueness. We're not talking about ability and intelligence. Of course, we are equally humans. But I'm sorry that some of these jobs to this day are still physically done by men, because there are some horrible, horrible crap that they do, and some dangerous, always the dangerous jobs. And that's it. This is the truth that it shows. These dangerous, high-stakes jobs aren't just a movie. This is real. And it does show that. And then it shows, the cost of what happens to someone who does have a family. And all of their struggles dealing with that. There's tender moments, there's good moments, but there's also bad when, that man is focused on the job, which can be all-consuming. And how does the family cope? So all of that, And I'm saying, please check it out. And if you are watching it, you know what I'm talking about. This brings me honestly to the one scene I wanted to talk about, that not only about, I think, what makes the show great, but what I think is missing in movies because they just don't get it. Movies, so nowadays, we tend to call it the message. That comes from one of my favorite YouTubers, very popular, called The Drinker. I'll be honest, he definitely coined that, and a lot of people, I've even seen it on the news when he wasn't there. People will reference the message, but that's what it is. Hollywood movies now, I feel like they're so pressured to make sure that they are sensitive and they get the proper message across in every movie. That's not storytelling. Real life stories to this day can be horrible and good or happy, filled with all emotions. But at some point, just like comedy, which I feel is dead, if you put guardrails on that, and I'm not saying, again, outwardly disrespecting something or disrespecting someone or being horrible, and also that does happen, I'm sorry. If you put guardrails on that, it's not real. So if you are not able to be honest about that, it's not real. So this is what movies try to do. They try to please everyone. And when you try to please everyone, guess what? You please no one. And I'm sorry. This past year, especially at the movies, a majority of the movies have failed. And you're like, oh, but it's just the money. Maybe critically it was good. Unfortunately, when the people don't want to see it, and then it goes on to streaming and they still don't want to see it, and the movie failed to make money, I'm sorry, that is also a sign that the message ain't getting across. It's not a true story. It's just, it might as well be a commercial. So this particular one, this was the most recent episode called Sins of the Father. And this is Billy Bob Thornton having a long drive in the truck with his son, Cooper. And again, mild spoiler, because it's not like this was a character in the show. Billy Bob Thornton's, his mother died. So, everyone's got a mother and a father. And so he went up to visit his father. And, it brought back a lot of tough memories for him. And they're driving in the truck. And essentially, and I think Billy Bob Thornton already has proven to be a great actor. But sometimes, not every actor can have a great moment in every movie. They always bring it. Jack Nicholson in every movie brings it. But sometimes there's that role. There's that moment. And I tell you, he had one here. So they're driving the truck, and Billy Bob, his character opens up about his own father. And sort of the abusive and harsh upbringing. And he also said, he admits he wasn't built to be a good father. He's talking about himself. And sort of years of avoiding fatherhood out of fear that he'd repeat the same thing. And, his son's listening without judgment, maybe not fully understanding. And Billy Bob sort of explains to him, when you have a son, or he's actually with the character on the show, he's with a woman who already has a child, and he loves her and he wants to be with her. And he says, if you're going to raise that child, you'll end up raising him the same way your father did. And that child, however you raise him, will be the same. He basically said it's a vicious circle that's hard to break. He goes, that cycle almost can't be broken. And, and the son says to him, well, you broke it. And Billy Bob Thornton says, I avoided it. It's not that he really did better. He just avoided it. And again, he's being honest. And this is what I say about stoic males. And unless you are a father or a son, and I'm sorry, just like I'm not a mother and I haven't been a daughter, I won't comment on that because I don't know. So it annoys me when people who are unable to know and experience that. Again, I never knock down opinions. Of course you can have an opinion and comment. My entire premise is based on that. I do believe in open discourse and freedom of speech and opinion. But I guess the annoyance is sometimes, especially in our modern world, there are certain opinions that are just taken as fact and Bible. And the fact is that's not true. If you don't know, you don't know. And I guess why I'm so attached to this and why I'm talking about this scene, I've had this very scene, and it was a long time ago. I would go on, my dad loved to drive, and he had a truck. And I'll be honest, that's some of the moments where we may not have talked a lot, but what we did talk about, maybe a couple words or a gesture, those are some of the most important moments I remember. And there are a lot of, moments I don't want to remember. I don't judge that. All that's over. It's too late for that. There is forgiveness. I don't think there's enough of that in life lately too. I don't think there's enough forgiveness. But I've lived this scene. So it did touch me on a personal level. So, Billy Bob opened up saying, I didn't change, just avoided it. He's feeling bad that he was a bad father by being so obsessed with work and sort of avoiding his family, only doing the basics, being there, maybe around the holidays. And so, the son opens up and he says, he says, I love you, Dad. And then he says, I know you tried your best, and that's good enough for me. I'm going to tell you what, that's all it takes. And that's someone who either knows firsthand how that dynamic is, or they're just a great writer. And maybe Taylor Sheridan is both. But that scene where, Billy Bob was only able to open up finally about some real things that he probably never told his son before. And his son said something which a lot of times sons and dads don't do, especially when they're older like that. When they're a kid, it's different. Of course, kids say, I love you. But when they've gone through a rough relationship like this, and the dad's feeling some regret, son's getting older, making his own decisions as a man and having a family of his own, to say, I love you, Dad, and I know you tried your best. That's good enough for me. And here's the kicker. I'm not showing the scene because I don't want to get demonetized on YouTube. But again, if you watch the show, it shows Billy Bob sort of looking away. He looks at his son. His son's just watching the road. And I tell you what, this wasn't CGI. This wasn't fake. This is a good actor. Billy Bob starts just that you do when you start to get emotional. The tears didn't flow. They didn't come out. But you could see him in his eyes. You see that glistening when someone's getting emotional. And then when you sort of widen your eyes, again, maybe only men do this, because men do this sometimes. They don't want to start crying, but they can't help that their eyes are tearing up, so they open them wide, move them around. And he did that so well because, he was touched. And then also, like a typical man who doesn't want to maybe face some of the emotions that he's feeling, he says, it was a hot one today, wasn't it? That's right. He started talking about the weather. But that's all right. That's beautiful. And that's normal. And the son said, yeah, sure it was. And again, they just continue to talk about normal things like the weather. But you know what? That's the thing you don't understand. That's a scene. That's a real scene. That's an emotional, dramatic scene. Again, it's one of the most honest portrayals I've seen of a father and son relationship in modern anything, TV or movies. The emotional restraint is emotion. And again, unless you know, you don't know. Women aren't men and men aren't women, sorry. But we all have emotions. And we're not going to be one way, which I see depicted all the time. I'm sorry. A lot of times men are depicted that they are wrong by not picking up the emotional cues of women. I'm not going to say, you're going to say, oh, you're saying just women are more emotional or hysterical. No, I'm saying they're probably more in tune to embrace emotions. And if you don't know that, well, I can't help you. You have to do some more living. And that's okay. That's sort of chemical makeup of a female human, which is all about everything, their brain, their body, everything going on makes that happen. But they want men to do that. And we don't. And we're not gonna. But that's about as close as you're gonna get. And it was beautiful. Saying like it was a hot one today while his eyes are tearing up a bit. That shift, breaking the intensity by talking about the weather, that is a universal father and son love language. It is. It's understated. but it's still heavy. To anyone who didn't grow up inside that dynamic, it may have looked minimal, but to anyone who did, I am letting you know, and maybe it is just me, because I have experienced that, and it was a monumental moment. So yeah, I just wanted to talk about that, how there can still be fantastic writing, and it doesn't have to be some big action movie. I tell you, that scene, if this were a movie, that would have brought people in. That would have got people talking. That would have, that's some Oscar-winning stuff. I'm not saying that's why, but if that's what you want out of a movie, especially as an actor, well, there it is. And I think it elevates the entire series. That it's not just action or workplace drama. It's a high caliber filmmaking in episodic form, and you got to love that. So yeah, it's a great show, and I think it works on all levels. It treats the audience like adults. There doesn't have to be, there's so much explaining these days and exposition. It drives me nuts. There are some scenes that go pretty quick, and they're just talking about, lawyers talking and stuff. And maybe you don't know everything, but just like movies of the past, you get the gist. It's a power play. Someone's going to win. Someone's going to have the big gotcha, and it's awesome. Maybe you rewatch it and you understand more. Maybe you don't. Who cares? You don't need exposition. You don't need a commentator or a narrator saying, so these lawyers talked about this precedent and this. Jesus Christ, just let the movie go. Let the TV show go. But yeah, it trusts silence, expression, and nuance. And I wish more movies did that. So yeah, I think Landman is it's not just good TV. It's a great, masterclass in character-driven storytelling. And I think that's Taylor Sheridan. When he's good, he's good. And I think the writing is sharp, the acting is exceptional, and I hope for more great episodes like that. But like I say, if that's something that you're into, and you're looking for those kind of moments, surprisingly, a show about big Texas oil has it. So anyway, that's all for this episode of The Ugly Truth. Hope you check out the show, and I hope you always keep open discourse about all these kind of conversations, whether they come from TV or movies or your own life. Just know that no one's opinion is wrong. It's just different, and it affects everyone differently. And I hope cancel culture continues to die off, because that's just not how humans are. We used to be able to agree to disagree and grow from it, learn from it. And I think this is a great show to learn and grow from. All right, more great music coming up next on our Landman live show, and we'll be right back after a word from our awesome sponsors.